Hesiod's Theogony and Works and Days are two ancient Greek poems that share a common narrative thread and some characters, but they have distinct purposes. The Theogony is an account of the origin and genealogy of the gods, while the Works and Days is a manual for proper behavior. There were only these 5 primordial deities who came from the infinite abyss called chaos. First, there was Gaia, the earth, born of the upper vapors that arose from chaos. Then Pontus, the sea, sprung forth from the lower vapors, because the island of Delos, which was supposed to be her birthplace, hadn't yet come into existence. So the other goddesses were angry at Leto because she was making such a fuss, and they banished her from Olympus and made her wander around the world for a year. Finally, she reached the shore of a river in Egypt, and as she walked toward the water, the land split open, and the island of Delos emerged from the ground. Here, Leto gave birth to her twin children, Artemis and Apollo. But Hera was jealous of her cousin, Ino, and drove her insane so that she killed her own son, then threw herself into a nearby river. Luckily though, the river god, rushing to catch her before she drowned, changed her into a fish, and the fisherman, Ixion, found her on the beach and married her. But humans became lazy and greedy, and the quality of their lives began to decline. For example, humans used to have big feasts, where everyone sat together and sang and danced. But now people eat separately in their own homes. You shouldn't let your neighbor take advantage of you, and you definitely shouldn't cheat him. But here's something that totally caught me off guard. If someone wrongs you, you should forgive them and be reconciled because Zeus hates people who hold on to grudges. Also, if you start an argument with someone, it is best to apologize and make amends, because it is better to be thought of as soft and yielding than strong and violent. Even parents no longer care for their children as they should. And the extended family unit has broken down. People don't visit each other anymore, and people are mean to each other. If someone has a lot of money, everyone wants to take advantage of them, and there's a lot of cheating going on. 2. No one trusts anyone else, and brothers fight with each other. They don't help each other out anymore. Instead, they live far away from each other, and they're suspicious of each other's motives. It's not good. Then Hera sent some more of her servants to kill little Dionysus, but they failed in their mission because the god was too cute. In the beginning, humans didn't know how to farm, so they lived hand to mouth and they begged the gods for help. Zeus sent Hermes to teach them agriculture and other skills, so they could build houses and live comfortable lives. But mankind got greedy and wanted to be rich, so they invited all the gods to a great feast, except for Zeus. Then they sacrificed a bull to each of the gods, except for Zeus, and ate and drank everything themselves. So Zeus was pretty mad when he showed up and caught wind of what happened. And he punished mankind by introducing iron tools and slavery into human society. However, they did succeed in making him drink some wine, which made him fall into a deep sleep. Then Hera snatched him up and tore him apart limb from limb. But Zeus was watching, and he transformed a lion, a tiger, an eagle, a wolf, and a boar into constellations. Then he rescued the rest of Dionysus' body, put it together, and brought it to Ino and Athamas, who raised the god until he was old enough to take over as the god of wine. Next, Erebus, the personification of darkness, and his wife, Nyx, the personification of night, emerged from the dark vapors. And punishing the giant Titus for assaulting the goddess Leto, there wasn't much else for Zeus to do. And Days, which is like a farmer's almanac filled with advice on how to live your life. Now the poem opens with Hesiod telling his audience, which seems to be primarily farmers, that there has been a long period of inflation and economic instability, and people have been acting unjustly toward each other. So he wants to remind everyone what the gods expect from humans. So he spent his time having affairs and siring more children with both goddesses and mortals. The most famous of his illegitimate sons were Perseus, who slew the Gorgon Medusa, and Heracles, the greatest hero in Greek mythology. But I've already done videos about both of these guys. So, I won't say any more, except that Heracles was given immortality by Zeus after he performed his 12 labors. So Hermes tracked down the thief and challenged him to a wrestling match. In order to win, Hermes used a trick that he learned from his half-brother, Apollo. He pretended to trip and fall over, causing Typhoon to feel sorry for him and let his guard down. When Typhoon lowered his head to help Hermes up, Hermes grabbed him by the hair and beat him with his staff until he fell. Then Hermes tied Typhoon's hands behind his back with 2 branchlets that were growing nearby, and he led the giant back to Olympus, where he presented him as a prize to Zeus. Last, there was Tartarus, the god of the deep abyss. Now, to make sure that history didn't repeat itself and the gods were overthrown by their children. Zeus chained up all the male gods that participated in the Titanomachi so they would be impotent. The females were turned into stone. And as for the female giants, Alcyoneus' sisters, they were never married, because Zeus was afraid that one of them might bear a son who could become even stronger than the Titans. Not to be confused with Tartarus, the location, which was the deepest part of hell in Orphic tradition, and armed, and she immediately went to join her father on his throne. Later, Zeus took another wife, Themis, who predicted that if he married a goddess, his children would usurp his power. But he didn't listen, and instead married Hera, who bore him Ares Hebe, and the goddess of the hearth, Hest. Zeus also had many affairs with mortals and immortal goddesses alike, and he sired children with both of them. But most importantly, he had a son with the Titan goddess Leto, and that child was named Dionysus, but which in Hesiod's Theogony is simply another word for the underworld, the place where all the dead went when they died. And so, to get into the spirit of things, we talk about some creation myths in this episode and then transition into discussing some practical advice for everyday life. Welcome to the channel. And from the blood that dripped down to the earth, Gaia, the goddess, produced the giant monsters called the Gigantomachi, who waged war against the Olympians. Some giants were killed by the gods, but Zeus allowed the others to escape back to earth, saying that he wanted to fight another day. So let's get started with Hesiod, which begins with him telling us about the 5 original deities who existed before there was an earth or sky. These 5 primordials then gave rise to the next generation of deities. Gaia and Uranus had the Titans, Cronus and Rhea, Oceanus and Tethys, Hyperion and Thea, Minos and Phoebe, Cous and Peneus, Crius and Eurybia, Iapetus and Clymene, Atlas and Plia, Mnemosyne and Zeus. I'm not going to go through all of their children, because some of them don't really do anything in Hesiod's poems, and they just kind of clutter up the family tree, but you can find more information about the Titans elsewhere if you want. Moving on. Cronus, the Titan king, castrated his father, Uranus, after he received advice to do so from his wife, Rhea. Next, the goddess Leto became pregnant by Zeus, but when she was in labor, she couldn't find anywhere to give birth. Meanwhile, the giant typhoon was causing trouble by stealing cattle from the god Hermes. But now it was time for Zeus to take over, as the supreme ruler of the cosmos, and he had to defeat the Titans first. Then Zeus married Metis, the goddess of wisdom, but he was tricked by her into giving birth to Athena. Fully grown in fact, Zeus disguised himself as a goat and approached the innocent and beautiful Titan goddess, Ino, who then bore him a son named Dionysus. Now, aside from slaying the dragon camp, who guarded the entrance to the underworld, so now we've covered the main events from the Theogony, but Hesiod also wrote another poem called Works. He says that, in the beginning, the goddess of the earth provided everything people needed to live. So in order to fix all of this, Hesiod reminds his audience of a myth that explains why mankind was cursed to suffer. After that, Hesiod tells his audience that it's important to honor the gods, to work hard and be honest. And that's the end of Works and Days. I hope you enjoyed this double feature episode, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye!